name is Margi Sheth. I am an R&D data policy director at AstraZeneca. And for the past year and a half or so, I've been working on what sort of things to consider when you're using artificial intelligence in healthcare. So our industry is historically data driven, but when we use that data beyond regular statistics and analytics and use it in algorithms, what do we need to consider? So, and I think Marcus, when he speaks, he will be speaking more about the data side, and I'll be a little bit more on the AI side. 3 topics for today from me. 1, why is responsible AI important? 2, what are some principles you can use for ethical data and AI? And 3, the risk, how to manage risk, impact, and governance of AI. So why is this important? So again, health, biomedical, and pharmaceutical fields have always been data-driven by design. We follow the scientific method, we build and we test hypotheses, and we rely heavily on statistical analysis and research and in post-marketing settings. But the way we analyze and utilize data is changing, and the speed is changing. We can now link types of data together that we previously saw as unrelated, and we find connections and correlations that we didn't see before. These connections can also be made by algorithms, and decisions are made based on those connections by algorithms. You've probably heard that we are in the 4th industrial revolution as AI is transforming so many industries. So this is the direction of travel, and this is the way we see things moving forward. But how do you define AI? It's quite a loosely used term sometimes. The European Commission recently proposed a regulation that defines AI quite broadly. New areas in healthcare and pharma include the ability for machines to learn and emulate human performance. They can come to its own conclusions, natural language processing, dialogue with people. These are some of the examples of types of artificial intelligence. It's more of a family of technologies, right? So it applies advanced analysis and logic-based techniques, including machine learning, to interpret events, support and automate decisions, and to take actions. And sometimes that action is even automated by the AI system as well. So when I'm talking about AI in this talk, I won't be talking about a t-test or a statistical analysis like that, but applying that a bit one step further when an algorithm helps come to decisions and conclusions. So why do we need to drive AI ethics in the biopharma space? This here is my image search of the word melanoma on a major search engine. So that's skin cancer. Do you notice anything about these images? All of these images are light-skinned people with a clear, contrasted, dark mole. So imagine if someone took their image search, took all these images and trained an algorithm and tested it to diagnose melanoma using this data set, and then deployed it in a hospital for a specialist to use. This is a very simplistic example, and I'm not insinuating any good data scientist would do this. It's a thought exercise. But this data set is not inclusive. There's serious fairness concerns in the design and outcome of using this system. Melanoma is already underdiagnosed in people of color globally. Would using this algorithm make it worse? Does the clinician know that it's only going to be effective for maybe a subset of their patients because it was only developed using light-skinned data? Should the clinic or the patient trust this diagnosis? This is a very clear example of where artificial intelligence can be used for the good reason, but can go wrong. And this is why we need to consider the ethics and responsible use. So one other thing we considered is that ethics is an ancient field of study, but data and AI ethics is an emerging field of study and practice. Tech giants are usually spearheading this domain, but even their expertise is still building. There's a lot of thought leadership in this area, but laws and regulations on AI usage and ethics are still forming. The European Commission released draft regulations that are now open for comment. The US Federal Trade Commission has also released some best practices recently. There's also limited areas of the biomedical and pharmaceutical industries that are currently under regulation, such as software as a medical device or automated decisions that are briefly mentioned in GDPR. So we thought about what applies to our industry, and our focus goes beyond activities that many other industries deal with, consumer browsing, data, cookies, that sort of thing, because our impact is on individual and community health. So we thought about who gets affected in the development pipeline of AI and the drug development pipeline, from the lab bench to the bedside. And we thought it was really important to look at this from a multidisciplinary angle. So sociologists, legal, philosophers, policymakers, compliance, that sort of thing. We thought it was important to do research way beyond just health and biomedical, because everyone has concerns, everyone has opinions, and everyone has done their own research in this area. And now moving to pharmaceuticals, wanted to talk a bit about the types of AI solutions and the complexity of them. It's good to understand what we expect from artificial intelligence so we know what safeguards are needed. We roughly saw this class into 3 buckets. One is decision support, where AI systems gather and analyze data and provide insights to a human decision maker, such as recommending a treatment decision in the clinic. Next, decision augmentation, which is when a recommendation is generated by AI, but a human makes the decision. So maybe predicting a molecular target for a company to pursue when they want to make a medication. And thirdly, decision automation, which is a system, an AI system will replace and eliminate the need for a human decision maker. And the system might even carry out the decision itself. So here is a sampling of 15 different AI projects in development across our enterprise at AstraZeneca, distributed across these 3 buckets. And the orange bubble size indicates the amount of time we expect a decision to take. So this profile is going to vary by organization and will change over time. But what we saw, this is from last year, that we already have AI projects at hand where we expect automated decisions in minutes or hours. And we foresee that this dark blue area will only expand over time, so that we'll have more and more complex and higher risk decisions while those orange bubbles get smaller. So what we need is proper controls and checks to enable this. So when we do this, we can clarify what we expect from the AI in order to trust it and make it work for us. So as a company, we analyze these current and future expectations of our AI systems, this multidisciplinary thought in AI ethics, and the impact of our industry on society. And as a company, we developed 5 principles on trustworthy and responsible data in AI. They are: we need to be human-centric and socially beneficial, private and secure, explainable and transparent, fair and accountable. I'll now go around this wheel and talk about each one of these for a moment. So we'll first start with human-centric and socially beneficial. And this means when data and AI are involved, humans are in charge of the system and accountable for driving clear and expected benefits to people and to society. And we want prudent and sustainable energy consumption when using AI solutions as well. So thinking about the environmental impact of heavy compute, we choose our projects carefully and also align with our company's environmental ambitions as well. So an example of this is deep fakes. We've all probably seen these online. They're widely mistrusted in general because they can be used to create artificial sway on a course of action or on the way something's perceived. It doesn't necessarily reflect reality. But is there a positive side to this concept? If we think about, in healthcare, synthetic clinical trial data, it mimics real data, but it's not made of real people's personal health information. If you use synthetic data when doing some trial analysis, it reduces the risk of using patients' data and exposing their privacy. It can also decrease the amount of patients you need to recruit for maybe the placebo arm of a trial, and that'll decrease overall patient burden and speed up the trial. So there is a good side to this technology, and we only want to use this type of technology for social good and social benefit. Next, I want to talk about private and secure. So for this one, we respect privacy and control and act within reasonable expectations of intended data use. And we employ AI systems that are designed to be secure. So private data can be used sometimes without a person's consent or knowledge, and bad actors can gain access to an AI solution and use it for their own gain. What if that AI system was capable of re-identifying some anonymized individual people's data? These are the type of situations we want to work to protect against. So we can also think about contact tracing during COVID-19. So think about detailed information of an infected person's movements. It's crucial for tracking and controlling the epidemic, but there are concerns sharing this information or the security. If a person tests positive, maybe the city or district can send out an alert to people living nearby about their movements. What if there's a description of that infected person, their age, gender, height, clothes? You can be identified if that was sent out. What if that exposes, some movement or action around town you didn't want others knowing, planning a surprise party, a job interview, something like that? It's no longer a secret. This goes against a fundamental human right to a private life. So when we want to be private and secure, we have to watch not only the data that's going in, but the information that's coming out and how it's used. Thirdly, I want to talk about explainable and transparent. So this means, what do we need to know or explain with AI? Sometimes it's considered a black box. If that black box, what part of the inner workings do we need to know in that black box when you put in information or data and out comes a conclusion? So let's go back to that skin cancer story. What if we built a good, inclusive AI-based tool with a more diverse data set to detect skin cancer, and it was used by a dermatologist? They use the tool, make a diagnosis, and the doctor writes in the patient's chart, AI confirmed harmless mole. But a few months later, a different doctor sees that mole on the same patient and gets suspicious, revisits the records. A few things are not clear yet. Was the AI tool used to assist the dermatologist's judgment call or replace it? Should the second doctor trust that AI tool? If they knew these details, maybe that second doctor can make an informed decision on whether or not to leave the patient alone or pursue that mole further. Maybe that AI tool can even be improved using that second doctor's feedback. So when I say explainable and transparent, we mean assumptions are clear, algorithms are documented, decisions are explainable as necessary, and we are open about the use of an AI system and understand its strengths and limitations. Next, we'll talk to accountable. So think about an AI solution is used over time, over a few years. The way it's used might evolve. Maybe the rules of the game changed. Maybe the environment, something in the environment changed. If your AI system draws conclusions, say, based on human behavior patterns, everyone's behavior changed at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. How do you make sure that AI agent continues to do its job correctly? So consider a vaccine company maybe that wants their next vaccine product to be more patient-centric. So they design a chatbot to do some market research and gather patient opinions. As that chatbot meets more people, it learns about its clientele's likes and dislikes, and it modifies its conversations and draws conclusions about its patient base. Let's say that chatbot fails to meet and converse with the right demographic. Maybe it meets only teenagers who are too young for the trial, or maybe anti-vaxxers or something like that. That app was intended to learn about the patient population. It's going to draw conclusions that are unhelpful or even counterproductive to their goal. And this actually happened to a different company. Their chatbot met hate groups and began spreading hate messages and had to be taken down within 24 hours, and it needed damage control. So how can a company protect against this? And was there a plan in place to make sure that chatbot behaves within acceptable limits? How do you monitor the bot once it's live? Can you blame the bot? The public is not going to buy that. So with accountability, we assign accountability of our data and AI systems throughout the life cycle, training, testing, and when it's live and deployed. And you make sure the use is appropriate and monitored over time. And as a company, we also decided to apply governance in proportion to the impact and risk of our AI systems, and have processes in place to deal with unanticipated outcomes. Lastly, I'm going to speak about fairness. And so this is, if any data scientists are in the crowd, this is not the data science acronym. This is fairness as in the definition of the word. So think about the skin cancer story. Which patients benefit from the tool? Which communities benefit? Which countries? Do the people that benefit from that tool need it most? Does anyone get left behind? And is this equitable access and quality of care? An AI system only acts on what it's taught. So if we want to prevent harmful bias, we need the algorithm to take the right factors and context into account. So when I say fair, it means using robust and inclusive data sets in your AI systems, treating people and communities fairly and equitably in the design, process, and outcome distribution of AI systems. So these are the 5 principles that our company built based on what was important to us in our industry and our values. We expect our understanding and methods of acting on these principles to evolve as the field of AI matures and regulations evolve, and so do public expectation. Now I want to shift to some of the practical aspects. How do we act upon this in our daily work as we buy, build, develop, or deploy AI solutions? How do we manage and embed this into our companies more formally? So the first question you can ask yourself are, what is the benefit? What could go wrong? And what is the impact? Because healthcare, we impact the health of a patient, their family, and their community. Again, COVID-19 is the easiest way to think about this in practice, but I'll bring a couple of different examples. So consider an artificial pancreas. These exist now and they're being tested. These affects patients' quality of life, their health, their family, their ability to work. What's the benefit? What could go wrong? What's the impact? Or if you think about an app that can listen to a cough and diagnose COVID-19, if this went wrong, many healthy people would self-isolate unnecessarily, or worse, infected people who don't think they have COVID because of this app would go out and about without being concerned, leading to an infection hotspot and a strain on the local health system. As a large provider of healthcare solutions or medicines in a market, our industry can affect a region's access to care or quality of care. It's a very real human impact. So if you want to think about how to determine the risk and impact of your AI projects, here's a few questions you can ask. So 1, do you have direct impact on individuals? Maybe you're selecting patients for a trial, monitoring people in real time, deploying a solution at the patient's point of care, or maybe it's something about employee welfare. Is there a localized impact on maybe just the development team? Maybe you're doing something in a very exploratory phase of research or algorithm development, and there's no foreseen downstream effects because you're still trialing and testing what you can even take to production. Is this affecting business decisions? Do you have a financial or reputational risk to yourselves or your company? Maybe it impacts a large decision made by the business. Fourthly, did you build this AI? Did you buy it, acquire it? Is it from a partner? How did you end up using this tool? Can you trust the developer to meet your needs and match your values? And who's accountable? And lastly, does your system make autonomous judgments or judgment without human participation? Is there weighted or value-based logic made by the system? These things can impact the risk of your AI solution. And you can even categorize it as a company, classify into from a spectrum from low to high. As you, maybe something is low, it might be daily scientific work, molecule simulations, that sort of thing. It might not really need a mitigation, but as you rise, you may want to add in more mitigations. Maybe, a low risk could be managed by good practice, but as you rise, you need to decide whether you can accept this risk, how to mitigate it. Do you need a risk management plan? Do regulations apply? And do you need approval from someone higher up, maybe in your company or a board decision, that sort of thing? So this is a way that you can approach this when applying into your company. So one of the realities of this is that many large companies like my own does not operate in the Wild West. They already have governance at play, perhaps several layers. From a practical lens, no developer or product owner of an AI solution wants to go through repetitive approval gates. It's a lot more efficient to build AI governance and management into your existing governance process. And so as a company, we wanted to do this, and we made a few decisions. One, we decided to use existing decision gates and reviews wherever possible. So if you have a data security review process, try to update that with your AI privacy and security questions and reviews. 2, we decided who in the business should be accountable so we can train those folks to think realistically and use the tools and services offered, such as maybe a playbook of best practices for AI or consultation with a subject matter expert. And thirdly, we chose an enabling approach. We want to embrace this direction of travel and trust our people, so we equip them with the best possible knowledge and tools to do it right. We want to focus on the learning and development to build the right behaviors into the company culture. And this way, people do the right thing more naturally, not just as a tick box exercise. Obviously, this does not happen overnight, but we're hopeful about the potential to improve the way we work and pursue our goals in improving health using artificial intelligence. We're optimistic and assume that everyone wants to do the right thing here. So with these principles and this framework, our goal is to have both human and machine reflect our values and our ethics as a company and as a society. So we hope these tools empower us and can give us confidence in the AI solutions we use so we can make a positive impact in healthcare and society. Thank you.